vessel in Washington State's ferry fleet. And the good news is it certainly won't be the last. The Wenatchee is now the largest hybrid electric ferry in the entire country. It has a 202 vehicle capacity. The next largest vessel in terms of vehicle capacity is in Texas, and that holds 70 vehicles. This is by far the largest hybrid electric ferry in the entire country. Governor Inslee will be saying a few words, and I'm so glad he was able to join us today, because while many folks have been involved in making this important day possible, clearly the person most responsible for this is Governor Jay Inslee. He's been committed to issues related to climate and moving to a clean energy economy throughout his career, and this is a very tangible example of that hard work coming to fruition. Governor, I have been giving some thought to if it's possible to rename the Wenatchee the Inslee. So we're still we're working through that naming process, so we weren't able to get it done by today, but we're working on that. But better if it's Trudy, he says. Okay, wonderful. The Wenatchee is, as you know, one of the 3 largest vessels in our fleet. It's 460 feet long, and as I mentioned, can hold 202 vehicles and 2,500 passengers. Bringing the Wenatchee back online is the final piece of the puzzle to restoring full domestic service to pre-pandemic levels, something we are very excited about here for the people of the state of Washington. The team has been doing extensive testing called sea trials with engineers and the Coast Guard for the past 6 weeks. That's in addition to 8 weeks of sea trials at Vigor before we got the vessel back. We are now finalizing crew training. We so appreciate the hard work of all of our crews here with the ferry system, and on this day in particular with this crew as we finalize that crew training. We have a few final things that need to be checked off before this vessel will be serving the people of the state of Washington. So, for example, I understand that there's some final Coast Guard checkoffs that need to happen. We believe, however, we're on track for the Wenatchee to return to service on the Bainbridge route next week. Our plan is when it comes back into service, it will initially, for a period of about a week or two, it'll start off with a 6-hour shift. That is for obvious reasons, right? We're bringing this online. It'll go for 6 hours. That, as Steve has mentioned, will allow 18 hours of just checking to see how it's going and how it's performing and make any tweaks that might be necessary. So just to recap, we're on track for next week, by then next week, for this vessel to be in the water, serving the people of the state of Washington. When that happens, it'll start off at 6-hour shifts, and that should last a week or two. Obviously, we'll keep you posted if that changes, but it is our anticipation at this point that the Wenatchee will be in the water, working full-time, serving full-time, certainly by the end of the month. And if that changes, we'll let you know, but we feel very optimistic that we're on track to do that. And just so, it's I'll be with Steve and others who are here up in the San Juan Islands on Monday for a community meeting, talk about our ferry service. This has obviously been a big priority of my administration to make sure we're serving the people with our ferry service and hearing from the public, but also making sure we're restoring service as quickly as we possibly can. And that's what makes this day so exciting, is one of our largest vessels coming back to the waters and serving the people of the state of Washington. Just before I turn this over to Governor Inslee, I just want to conclude by saying, once again, how much we appreciate Governor Inslee's leadership. This would not be happening if it weren't for Governor Inslee. It's just that simple. And he's been determined to make this transition. He led on this transition, and it's an honor for me to be here today to introduce Governor Inslee to all of you as well. Governor Jay Inslee.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Governor. By the way, if we're going to rename the boat, I think it should be the Nevy after Steve's leadership. And I'm serious about that. Steve and all the mariners and the ferry crew have been working so hard to restore service to normal levels in the state of Washington. We owe him a debt of gratitude. And Steve's leadership has been incredible in developing the new training program. I just met 2 mariners that are in the apprenticeship program. That's a product of Steve's leadership. And that's why we're able now, and we've been working on this for a couple of years now, you're seeing the fruition of this, of being able to restore some service. Look, this is a day of great Washington celebration because Washington State is a great state. It's a great visionary state. It deserves a great visionary boat and has got one today because it's got the most advanced electric propulsion system ferry, not just in Washington, not just in America, but in North America. And we ought to be proud of this achievement. It's happened because our state always is looking over the horizon to make the next transition to a better, cleaner, more efficient future. We led the world in the transition from propeller airplanes to jet airplanes. We led the world in the transition from little cards to digital electronics. And now we're leading the world in a decarbonized maritime fleet, starting right here with the Wenatchee. So I could not be more proud of the achievement of Washingtonians leading the world. And for me, it's very personal. I grew up on these boats. I remember my granddad used to take me walking on the boats. It scared the heck out of me when the horn went off. I got over it eventually. But I go back to the days of the Kalakaua, where we had a very unique vessel. The last steam-powered ferry boat on the West Coast, the San Mateo. And now to lead to the next generation of vehicles is extremely exciting. And we ought to look at this transition as an economic opportunity as well as a convenience opportunity for commuters, because it's going to help our economic growth. We have Corvus Batteries making batteries in Bellingham. The first hydrogen-powered ferry boat in the Western Hemisphere is now under sea trials down in San Francisco. So this is a growth opportunity for the state of Washington. But the environmental benefits, when we started this idea in 2019, we knew that one thing for sure. Washington State had to reduce the carbon pollution that is destroying the planet. And when we see the floods in Texas, in New Mexico, and North Carolina, it's because of carbon pollution that until this boat came along was coming out of our smokestacks of the ferry fleet. We've made a decision to transition away from that dirty fuel and that climate change gas. And we're doing it right here on the Wenatchee. It's going to save hundreds of thousands of tons of pollution that otherwise is going in Washington's blue skies. And by the way, it's not just climate change, it's asthma. The stuff coming out of our tailpipes and our smokestacks causes an epidemic of asthma. So this is a boat that is at the same time historic. It is an economic growth opportunity. It is improving the health of our children. And maybe the best thing is you're going to love riding on this boat. Trudy and I have read on the electric boats in Norway, and the crews all want to serve on the electric boats because there's no vibration. And they go home at night and they're not tired. So people are going to be riding back and forth on the boats. Maybe we'll give them a deal, 2 for 1 or something, because it's going to be so much fun to ride on these boats. Congratulations, Washington State.
Thanks, Governor. I appreciate it. So thanks, Governor Inslee. And we're happy to take any questions, and Steve will help. We can assist on technical questions as well, but we're happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Governor,
Oh, excuse me.
obviously, current governor or former governor.
Can't get over it.
I wanted to ask, this is obviously a huge milestone for Washington State Ferries.
Yes.
What can we expect going forward?
I think what you can expect is more of the same. You know, I just approved through the bid process building more of these vessels with the company in Florida. So we're moving in one direction, more of these kind of vessels for all the reasons that Governor Inslee mentioned, right? Clean air, a healthy Washington, good for environment and good for climate. So I've been very consistent during my time running for governor and as governor that we're only moving in one direction here. And this is, from a tangible standpoint, the first sort of tangible aspect of that. There's been a lot of work getting to this point, but as I said in my remarks, it most certainly will not be the last. And so that's my message to Washingtonians. And we're going to do that in a way that prioritizes getting vessels, getting them on water as quickly as possible to get that service. That's what people depend on, but to do that in a way that we combine that and doing that in a way that's good for Washingtonians and good for our climate, that is especially rewarding to be able to combine those.
How long has the Wenatchee been out of water? I'm sorry.
I believe, Steve will correct me, but I believe the Wenatchee's been out of the water for 22 months?
Yes.
22 months. Yes.
Given the experience with the Wenatchee
Yes.
and the cost overruns,
Yes.
have you given any more thought than when we covered your announcement to delay the next 2 conversions on just moving off conversions and focusing the state's limited resources on new hybrid electric boats?
So we're definitely moving forward on the new electric, right, vehicles, of vessels, of course, but no new updates on the delay on the conversion. I think I've been pretty clear that, hey, we have a major event coming up with the World Cup, wanting to restore full domestic service. Those are priorities right now. And I think it's important that while we make this change, make this transition, which the people support, I believe, that we do that in a way that we maintain that service, right? Make sure the people are supportive of what we're doing, maintain that service. So it's finding that balance. And so obviously we'll be keeping an eye on that as we go forward, but nothing's changed from my perspective. Yes, it's delayed, but look forward to sometime soon, getting those vessels converted. But right now, celebrating this event, the new vessels that will be coming online hopefully relatively soon, and then in time making that conversion as well. Any other questions today?
Washington State also has a goal to sort of reduce its emissions by 2040, and I know that there's been some discussion about that, but is there any sort of estimate on when we can reach that goal after, you know, delaying the conversion
Yeah.
to hybrid electric?
Our goals are ambitious, as they should be, and so, you know, just like with the earlier question, this one took a little longer than we anticipated. We're talking about things that are new and different. Sometimes that's going to take a little bit more time. So that is still our goal. We're still aiming for that goal. We're still driving for that goal. But like anything, if we need to adjust, we need to adjust. But the good news is we learned a lot from this process. I think that's fair to say. So to your question earlier about, hey, additional conversions, we learned a lot through this process. That's helpful for us. We have the bid now in place with Eastern, moving forward on that. So obviously we have to see how things develop, but we're trying driving towards making sure we're reaching that very ambitious goal, but that's our goal.
And this being the first, you know, hybrid electric vehicle, you said we learned a lot. What did we learn?
Yeah, Steve, maybe I'll turn to Steve to say, hey, Ken, what from the on the ground, maybe do you want to speak to that, Steve?
Yeah, I mean,
Feel free to come right on up. Yeah.
so whenever you take a vessel that's over 20 years old out of the water with a view to retrofit it, you start to remove diesel engines, and then you find the as-built state of the vessel wasn't as you expected it to be. So there was a lot of tweaking that needed to happen based on once they removed the diesel engines, how all the pipes fit back together and how everything went into getting the batteries where they needed to be. So there's been a lot of lessons learned on the restarting the boat and how we got the boat back online and how we did these sea trials. We learned a lot during the whole process that I think will help if we move forward with the next two conversions. It'll help make it a quicker, more seamless process. And we're capturing all those lessons learned so that if that decision is made to move forward, we're ready with those lessons in mind. So.
Thanks, Steve.
Can you talk about the savings in terms of the cost of operation of a hybrid versus?
Well, one of the main goals is to get charging capacity down to the terminal so that we can charge the vessels and run them 100% electric all the time, and then the diesel engines are just a backup. Until we can do that, we anticipate saving 25% on the fuel just running in hybrid mode on this boat until we can start charging it.
When will the charging happen? When do we get towards that?
I think 2028 is our goal. Yeah, 2028. We're working to get charging capacity at 3 docks by then.
Can you describe how it works at this point? I mean, if the diesel is charging the hybrid engine, I mean,
Yeah, right now I don't know if we're all going down to the engine room or if it's just the governors, but basically the engine, it's like a Prius. The engine is running, and then at the same time it's putting energy into the batteries, and then when they get up to a certain point, the engine cuts off, you run on batteries, and then when it gets down, the charge gets down to a certain point, the diesel engine will kick back on and start charging again. And they anticipate running in that mode until we get that charging infrastructure. So
If there is an opportunity after the governor's league, when we're back at the dock, for anyone who wants to go down and check out the battery bins.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So thanks for mentioning that.
question for the governor.
Yeah.
I think, the bid came in and went to the Florida company, like you said.
Right.
The only local bid was much higher.
Yes.
When I talked to the CEO of the local bid, Nichols, he said this is the end of ferry building in Washington
Yeah.
State. What do you make of that? I mean, there's more boats to be made.
There are, yes.
The far cheaper option right now, of course, is
Yes.
Florida. Do you expect to ever have a Washington boat builder build a ferry?
I am certainly interested in that. I saw his comments. I think we've been pretty clear. There are many more vessels to be constructed. We encourage them to compete again. We encourage them to compete in a way that is, from a cost standpoint, one that's a whole lot closer. And so, obviously I was very mindful of the wide disparity in costs that taxpayers pay, right? The taxpayer dollars. And so I saw his comments. I'm hoping when some time goes by after the disappointment of not getting this particular bid, perhaps fades a little bit, that when we go back out for bids again, that they'll reconsider that position. But certainly, it is one reason why I spent a fair amount of time with this decision. Obviously, I was mindful of how important it was for the future of our of our ferry system. But obviously I was keenly interested in seeing if there was a way to make it work with a Washington company. But I just felt at the end of the day, the disparity was very great in terms of cost. It was very great. And that was, at the end of the day, top of mind for me. And so we'll see what the future holds. I hope they reconsider that position, but that's really up to them.
Considering we got 3 boats out of this bid,
That's correct.
when do we see the next bid coming out?
Oh man, Steve, do we have a sense of that? We're still just, I think, getting through our last process. Do we have-
You've asked us to look at the lease
Yep.
to buy
Yep.
option.
Yep.
So we've currently got a team that's starting to figure out what a lease to purchase plan would look like. Obviously, that team is also the team that's doing this and getting the charging infrastructure and building the new boat. So we're working on getting a proposal for the governor on what a lease to purchase plan would look like and how we would go about bidding that out. So that's what we're working on at the moment.
So,
as far as the next-
so more to come. So just more to come. So, and I think we've talked about this at past media events. I believe I've really encouraged and asked the team to give me as many options as possible to get vessels in the water as soon as possible. And one of those options that we've discussed is that lease to purchase option. So the team is developing that proposal for me to see if that's viable. So again, I'm not committed to any one process here, I want to be clear, but what I communicate to Steve and to the team is we need to get vessels in the water as quickly as possible at the best price possible. And so that's an option that we've had many conversations about this. No commitments yet at this point, need to see what that looks like, how it pencils out, but that is the type of thing that we're looking at as an option.
Any other ferry systems done lease to own in our country?
Not that I'm
Right.
aware of.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
is it, I imagine it, I only think of it as my college days.
Right.
Going to rent a center
Right.
to
Yeah.
own furniture.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that buying a ferry the same way? That
We're-
lease payments
We're
eventually-
going to find out. So I want to be clear, right? We're not prejudging anything. What I want to be very clear about is we need vessels in the water as soon as possible for the best possible price to serve the people of the state of Washington. That's our North Star. I'm interested in different ways to get there, right? And I just think it's important when you have a crisis, you act like there's a crisis. That means you look at different options. I just think that's important. And so I've asked Steve and the team to do that, to look what are the options, how's that pencil out, is this possible? And hey, this is the first of its kind here in the United States. It's going to be great. Maybe lease to purchase works, maybe it doesn't. So I want to be very clear, we're not prejudging anything. I just want to make sure I've got all the options possible to make the best decision to get vessels in the water at the best possible price. That's going to be our North Star.
Governor, Representative Greg Nance has encouraged the state to look at passenger ferries as
Mhm.
one of those options that could be deployed much sooner than the larger ferries.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Representative Nance has been a great partner. Let me start with that. He's been at these events before, by the way. He's been a great partner and just really appreciate his work. So I have a lot of respect for his opinion. He and I have talked about that, and I put that in the same category of we're looking at all options to get vessels in the water and different ways of doing it. And so I'm open to that. I think members of the legislature are open to that. We just got to see what pencils out, what our budget is, what makes the most sense. But from my standpoint, all options are on the table. I'm interested in those. We've been busy, as you might imagine, right, these past several months, and but I'm definitely aware of his suggestion there.
Governor, let me
Oh,
if I
absolutely.
may,
Go ahead,
I
Jim.
want to give you a historical context about the question of future shipbuilding in Washington. I think that option still exists. I'll tell you why. When we started this process, we had the Vigor shipyard had extremely progressive, energetic, ambitious leadership, and they were working very closely with us to do this project. And everything was on track, and then the company was sold to a different management group, which really never has expressed any interest in this particular kind of work. We have the shipyards, we have the personnel, we have the vision. We just need some management that is interested in going forward in this type of technology. And I believe as this technology matures, you're going to find more management groups, hopefully here in Washington State, who can get involved in these future boats. We should have confidence in that regard. One other comment about the time it's taken to do this conversion. We've had at least 2 big things that made this much longer than our next projects. One was Vigor sort of dropping out in some sense of the project, but the second was COVID. So the next things, we should not be daunted by the time to dig this project. We should celebrate today, in my view.
I think so. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll be around. We're going to be obviously touring the vessel. It sounds like once the vessel comes back, there's also an opportunity for media to explore as well. Is that right? So check in with the team on the details of that. But just appreciate all of you being here. Once again, Governor Inslee, thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.